Hello, my name is Heidi Ellsworth. Welcome to this month's RLW Read, Listen, Watch from Roofers Coffee Shop. And I have to tell you, I know I say this a lot, but this is a really special RLW today. Something of passion, something that the whole industry is getting passionate about. And so I brought two of the best experts to talk about what is happening with SkillsUSA. Not just what is happening, but for some of you, maybe what is it? So we're going to be talking about SkillsUSA, the future of the roofing industry, and recruiting today's youth and tomorrow's roofing professionals. So let's get before we get started, I do want to remind everybody this is being recorded and will be available probably on Monday afternoon. So you'll be able to share that out with all of your friends and colleagues so everyone can know about SkillsUSA. And we are going to have the chat open. It is open right now. So please let us know where you're coming in from. And as we go through, please be sure to ask them a lot of questions. So let's get going. I would like to introduce our first esteemed guest, and that is Jennifer Ford Smith with Johns Manville. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Heidi. It's always fun to be a part of these things.
Yeah, and I want to thank you because Johns Manville is sponsoring this RLW today and was also a huge sponsor for SkillsUSA. So thank you so much for everything you and all of Johns Manville do.
Well, thank you for saying that. We're glad to be a part of such a great industry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to let everyone know who you are and tell us a little bit about Johns Manville.
Sure. I'm Jen Ford Smith. I go by Jen, Jenny, Jennifer. I'm not picky. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So I was lucky not to be called Keith or John when my mom was angry with me. But I've been here at JM for 20 years, almost 21 years. Most recently, most of my role here has been on the product management and marketing side. So since 2020, I've been in that role. I had a few years in a short stint in sales between 2017 and 2020. But I just, really enjoy being a part of the roofing industry. Great people. JM is over 160 years old company. We started our roots in roofing. We've always been a big supporter of things like SkillsUSA and the NRCA. So.
Yeah. What an amazing organization. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this conversation. So we also wanted to bring someone who is living and breathing SkillsUSA and CTE overall, and that is John Esbenshade with NRCA. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me again, Heidi. Jen, great to see you again.
John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about NRCA.
Sure. So myself, I came initially into my professional life as a classroom teacher for 6 years. After that, I ended up in curriculum development for the construction industry, and that put me on an intersect path with roofing. And once roofing gets to you, it just kind of sticks. NRCA is the National Roofing Contractors Association. More than 160 years old, to my rough estimation anyway. We are very much advocates for developing, standardizing, and growing the roofing industry and benefiting all aspects of it, contractor, manufacturer, and anything in between.
Everything else. Great. Okay. Let's talk SkillsUSA. I'm really excited about this. I do want to remind everyone that the chat is open. Would love to go ahead and put in your name, where you're from, and then throughout the conversation, any questions or comments you have, we'll shout them out. So, okay, let's start from the very beginning with a little bit of a labor outlook. Like, where are we? We talk about this labor shortage all the time, but I really would like, kind of between the three of us, talk a little bit about that. What do you see from the Johns Manville side of things? Jen, what do you see with the current labor shortage?
Well, I'm on the board for the NRCA, and we've gotten some demographics. I think, we want to refresh some of that information, but I have a number in my head that the average roofer that's up on the roof is somewhere around 47 years old. And as we all know, it's pretty tough work. And we have a lot more people exiting construction jobs than are entering. And that's why things like SkillsUSA is so important. And I looked up some statistic just on the overall construction market, and the Associate Builders and Contractors Organization estimates there's about 550,000 jobs that are going to need to be filled just in 2023 alone, above their normal hiring pace. Another statistic is for every $1 billion that is invested in building, there's 39,000 openings a month to cover that $1 billion of construction spend. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in our industry. There's a lot of different types of jobs, but we're just having a hard time filling them. And, you know, that's no different. The reason we're so invested in this as a manufacturer is we talk about the construction industry, but it's hitting us in manufacturing as well. Retention is tough. It's tough work out there. And, you know, we got to, as manufacturers, make it easier. So we're looking at innovation and things like that to encourage folks to want to come in and do this type of work. Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's the number one topic the NRCA talks about at every meeting that we have.
And at NRCA, and then every regional and every other association we're with, it's like that labor is just the topic. John, you are so involved in this from, you know, obviously working with the CTE initiatives and SkillsUSA, but what are you kind of seeing, and maybe some of the things from NRCA on the future labor outlook? Like how much trouble are we in?
Well, it's I like to think of things in as much of a rose-colored glass as possible, and it's opportunity, as Jen alluded to. The way these things tend to historically have gone in other industries, and really in all other things, is, you know, there are ebbs and flows, right? And if you jump on an opportunity at the right time, you can see extremely interesting and positive results. And I think that's kind of where we're at when it comes to attracting newcomers into the industry who have talent. When we look at what the future might hold in terms of strategies and things to do, we do want to make sure that we keep the manufacturers happy. We want to make sure that the contractors are getting the kind of quality labor that we need. And when you combine all those things, the opportunity in terms of the time and the history of where we are as an industry, and this being a time where we're making those connection points to career and technical education schools and offering some of those trainings to students to kind of springboard them into a very successful career, I think we have a really interesting set of circumstances for these kids right now.
I agree. I mean, such a great industry, great pay, great career path. I'm with you. So I do see that. And, you know, really, as we're looking at this and thinking about that next generation of recruitment, that's really, in the past, we haven't been able to really show, I don't think, as many people about how great roofing was as we are today. We're very focused on it. And Jen, I know you and I have been on a lot of committees together, but that whole roofing professionalism, roofing respect, it's really taken off.
Yeah. I mean, I was just sitting in a committee and someone was telling me, you know, that their background was Washington and they were a staffer for somebody. And in our latest roofing day, one of the things we talk about is how, you know, what a great living you could make in this industry. And she was telling me like how some of the staffers today, when we give them the statistic of what people can make, how their eyes just get like, because it's more than what some of those folks are making, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we can do a better job with our elevator speech. And I know we're spending a lot of time on how we do that, so people understand what a great industry it is to come into and that you can make a very nice living when you come into it.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. So, okay, let's talk a little bit for those out there who are kind of wondering what the heck is SkillsUSA. We keep talking about it. So, John, we'd love for you to kind of give us a history of SkillsUSA, what it is, just kind of get everybody on the same page.
Absolutely. So SkillsUSA, think of it like a national trade student and trade teacher and trade school association. You know, back in the day, they had shop classes, they had basic carpentry classes. And what SkillsUSA really is founded in the 1960s. It is an organization designed to pair kids with a specific trade education that they can then use to build a career and build a life around. The very and most important part of Skills USA is obviously the construction cluster. As many as, I believe, 70% of the Skills USA contests involve some aspect of construction. And until very, very, very recently, roofing has been not involved with that at all for a bevy of reasons. But it's kind of gotten to the point where now we have enough industry support. We have all the structural things. We have great manufacturer and contractor relationships. And everyone kind of sees the benefit of now is a good time to connect with this wellspring of very qualified future leaders and other aspects of the construction industry.
Yeah. And you know what, just John, to kind of give everyone, I know you said they connect with all kinds of vocational schools, but can you just give everybody a list, a short list of all the different vocational opportunities that are represented at Skills USA?
Yeah, absolutely. I can rattle off a few just in the construction and then go from there. You know, you have carpentry, you have masonry, you have arc welding. They're trying to do an underwater welding class. They have electrical, they have HVAC, they have plumbing. Outside of that, you know, broader, you have cosmetology, you have people training to be EMTs, you have people training to be police officers, you have robotics, you have computer engineering, you have graphic design, there's a demo contest for students to build games using virtual reality. So if you're trying to think, is there specific education out there somewhere for students who want to apply it earlier in their educational pathways, there might be a Skills USA contest for that.
Yeah, it might. I mean, Jennifer, as you were walking around and looking at all this, I know as I was walking around, I mean, I just had to keep putting my jaw back up, but what did you think of all of the contests, all the competitions that were going on?
Yeah, I was like blown, my mind was blown away. Not what I would expect at all. For just to set some context, we all know how big convention centers are, right? And there's generally big halls that, usually trade shows only take up one hall. This place took up 3 big halls, and the construction one was the biggest one. And we were roofing was right in the middle. We had a huge pavilion, but like 6,000 kids come to this thing. And so when I was walking in, I had no idea what to expect, and my mind was blown away, especially when the team, what you're seeing in the picture there on the left is the team competition. And those kids come out a day before to look at what their project's going to be. And there were probably, I don't know, I felt like there was 200 of them that walked right by our roofing pavilion as they were preparing for themselves or for their competition. I mean, the thing that I could liken it to, I think we're all competitors of some sort, right?
Yeah.
And we have our own ways of competing. But I look at this, schools have done for years and years and years a great job of promoting competition in sports, right? We know that you can go to the regionals and then you go to the state level and then you go to, maybe the nationals for a sport. Well, this is the same thing, except it's showing off your skill set. And so these kids compete at the local and regional level, make it to state. And then this is their big show. This is their Super Bowl. They take a lot of pride in it. You can see they all wear their uniforms. They're required to wear uniforms, safety gear, all this kind of cool stuff. And you know what, I would be remiss, I think we would be, I noticed Rick D'Amato's on here.
Yes.
I think he was one of the biggest people to push the NRCA to really get involved in this. So I just wanted to thank him because I saw that he was one of our attendees today.
I know. I was thinking the same thing, Jen.
Yeah.
Rick, we're so happy you're on here. And he was the first one to get funding from the Alliance a couple years ago, and really supported it in Georgia, and really started it there with the Georgia Roofing Contractors Association. So Rick, you're the best.
Rick brought it, and then John, it wouldn't have happened without you closing it, right? You really, I think, made roofing look really good this year.
Well, it took about 70 people, all working together, all donating in some kind of way. Jennifer, obviously, John's Manville was a massive part of that. Heidi and Rick, spearheading a fundraising effort, and just maybe 8 weeks to get us the bankroll that we needed to do the pavilion properly. So I'm glad we are where we are. I think we're at a very exciting time, and 2024 is going to be a heck of a thing.
I know. We're getting ready for it. So real quick, I also want to say to Jennifer's comment, all the pictures you're seeing as we go through this are pictures from Skills USA. So these right there, they're roofing, they're on the Teamworks, they're putting on actually Temco shingles. And so you're going to see that as we go through. But just real quick, this took me a while to kind of understand too, John, is let's talk about the role of roofing in Skills USA right now. Like you said, it's not been there, but just kind of give just a little bit of history because you've been getting it in step by step over the last couple of years. So where are we with roofing at the National Skills USA?
Sure. So there are 2 roofing contests at the Skills USA. There is the Teamworks contest, picture there, where teams of 4 get a plan set that they've never seen before, and they are instructed to build a structure that includes carpentry, masonry, plumbing, electrical, and now a roofing component. So last year it was just a tiny little eyebrow, maybe 3 by 3. And obviously this year we had something much more challenging. It's our goal to continue to build general knowledge about asphalt shingle installation, proper methodology, and safe installation via the Teamworks contest. The other side of that is the commercial roofing contest, which is a standalone low slope mock-up that includes perimeter edge wall, box and a pipe flashing, termination bars, and welded thermoplastic. So we really want to continue to funnel students to be able to compete successfully in both of those contests. We had 22 states vote yes to add the commercial roofing contest as its first year. We were able to get 7 states to hold state contests, and of those, 4 of those 7 state champions were able to fund themselves to go to the national contest and participate in the first commercial roofing national contest.
It was so cool. It was so cool. So let's kind of as we are going through that, let's talk about you brought that up a little bit on the numbers. Let's, John, just talk a little bit about that path for the kids. And by the way, this is a competitor on the commercial low slope, and Mia was we had 4 contestants. Mia was one of them, so it was great to have a woman in there. But let's talk a little bit about how these how our roofing, how they get there. How do they do this?
Sure. So the first step is most of these students come out of some kind of building sciences, construction, or carpentry class. You know, obviously the Venn diagram between roofing and carpentry, the intersect there is difficult to ignore. So we use it for our advantage. Where these students came from or from building sciences classes, we connected with them, either contractors directly or NRCA, and we said, why not roofing? Let's talk about the commercial roofing contest. Let's talk about the standardized mock-up that we have, how we will donate all tools, materials, schedule time for trainers to come in and sponsor the entire school, because that's really what we want to do. We want to build these relationships at the local level, grassroots, have industry nurture and train up some students until you have a state champion. And then from there, take care of that state champion and train them up to hopefully be able to compete to win a national championship. From there, and this is absolutely on my vision board one day, is to have one of the students from this commercial roofing contest compete in the international contest. And just imagine that, a world champion low slope roofer. What a thing.
I would love it. And this low slope roofing, just so everyone knows, it's really it follows the pro certification and track. So they're doing real life what our pro certified installers are doing, right?
Absolutely. We do try to hold that standard pro certification as being the goal for the students who are taking this on. Like, this is what you're eventually going to have to do, is have to be able to be a pro certified installer, because we're not just trying to set these students up to be good enough. We're trying to set them up to be excellent, to be leaders in their field. And so we want to hold them to the highest standard possible. It makes it simple enough because there is a little bit of knowledge about pro certification, the mock-ups used, the materials used. So we try to lean on that general Q rating about that pro certification, and then connect that with career and technical education. And the sweet spot happens at Skills.
Yeah, I love it. So a quick question on this. We saw, you talked about the Teamworks with where they're doing steep slope. And is there, we just had a question from Blair, and thank you, Jen, that asking, is there any plans to expand to steep slopes, or is there any like just steep slope competition plans for the future?
The teamwork side is going to be where that steep slope comes in. We do want to make sure to take care of residential. You know, obviously that's a massive part of the roofing industry and a big part of NRCA's membership. Kind of where we see it is we see a lot of those steep slope installers in year 1 and 2 as being carpentry apprentices. And that's really where the teams come out of for the Teamworks competition, is out of a lot of carpentry classes and general building science classes. So we try to connect those teams with the kind of top level training, much in the same way that we prepare the commercial roofing kids for pro certification and offer them, look, these are some training options that we can recommend. We know it'll train up your kids. We know they can compete to win at the Teamworks contest, because as you mentioned, Jennifer, that competition is very, very fierce when you get to a certain point. The kids that come there to win the national championship, that's all they're thinking about for months at a time. And so we want to make sure that the ones who are truly dedicated to excelling in all aspects of Teamworks are very capable shingle installers.
I love it.
And as a founder of National Women in Roofing, I was really excited to see there was all female teams there. They had pink hard hats to differentiate themselves. But yes, it was a very neat experience to be a part of, for sure.
It was great. There were a lot of young women there competing across everything, but it was great on the Teamworks to see that. It was very cool. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about the competitions. So, and we kind of just did, because we're so excited about all this, but real quick, John, just one more time, just on, and actually you said this, so we have the Teamworks with the steep slope and the shingles, and then we have our commercial roofing. Real quick, how on the commercial roofing competition what did you have to do to get that included? Because the Teamworks is already there. So I know you worked really hard to get the shingles and a larger roof included, which looks so cool. But how did you get commercial roofing in?
I clicked my heels together 3 times in my reader, and that was pretty much it. So SkillsUSA is a really interesting organization in that a lot of decisions are made state by state at the individual state level. So what we had to do was we had to create a standardized contest. We had to propose different curriculum options that would prepare students, a plan of attack. And then we had to, when I say we, I mean NRCA's workforce development team, which is modest in size. And then we had to contact all 54 of the SkillsUSA state directors, state our case, set meetings, plug them into local industry support, let them know that we were going to fulfill our promises when it comes to paying for everything, basically, is the promise, and making sure that the training that we're offering these kids leads to better job options once they hit the market. Fortunately, these are all things that are not difficult to promise. We have amazing generosity that has been consistently done in a multitude of states already. So we kept our promises, we showed up, we then had individual contractors schedule time to come into the schools and prepare students to be able to go and compete. So it really takes all that. It takes manufacturers and distributors donating materials and tools. It takes contractors donating paid time of their trainers to go into these schools. It takes interest from the students themselves. It just takes so much things. It's a fluid and never-ending thing once it kind of gets going. And it really took all of that to get us to the point where we were ready to have a contest in June.
Yeah. And what was interesting is we had the competition going on, which, by the way, on the commercial side, I want to say Ivy Roof Systems donated the membranes, and that was for the commercial low slope commercial contest. And then we had Tamco, who donated the shingles for the Teamworks. But a fun competition that was happening on the side in the booth was a heat welding competition sponsored by Manville. So Jen, tell us a little bit about like the kids coming by and them, trying, I mean, they won some nice certificates at the end of people who competed in that heat welding contest.
Yeah. And this is really eye-opening to me, because at first I'd be honest, when I first said, oh, we only had 4 competitors there, I thought those would be the only 4 people we'd be engaging with. And it really just came to like, it just all came together, and we didn't really, we had several planning meetings, but wasn't sure how it was going to come together. So we were given as a sponsor, and thank you, an area to kind of come up with an idea of what we could do to promote commercial roofing. And so we had some of our tech organization folks from our tech organization come in. And what we kind of decided about what we would do is, on day 1, we would demonstrate how to weld a seam. On day 2, we would let people do hands-on, come try it, give it a try. And day 3, we would have this mini competition. Well, from day 1, it just became a hands-on, come learn kind of thing. And, we actually had some gloves that we were going to give away, so the kids could weld and not burn their hands. And so I kind of set them up, and all these kids from other trades were coming up, and they're like, how do I get a set of those gloves? And I'm like, well, you got to try welding some TPO out, right? And we went through them all, right? And they were really excited. One of my favorite stories is that, and this gal was a welder, and what they were welding was sculptures. One of the booths or areas next to us had all these beautiful sculptures on display from, people take parts of different, metal scrap and bolts and all this kind of stuff, and then they weld something very beautiful and creative together. Anything from
Amazing.
flowers to elk to dogs. And one of the gals competing in that area came over and asked us what we did. And she's like, oh, I'm in the welding competition. And so my question to her was, do you want to learn a different type of welding? And so she jumped right in and learned how to weld. And at the end of the day, we gave out some money and some backpacks, and, but I think the kids were really all engaged, and the advisors, that is a very important group that you have to connect with, because it's the advisors that go back and advocate to bring roofing into the CTE schools that they're a part of. And we had plenty of advisors come through and learn about welding. So
it was. And you guys were busy the entire time. It was crazy. In fact, here's a picture of the welding table and Mick, who teaches. So John's Manville, tell us a little bit about the team you had there, Jen, who were so great with all the participants.
Sure. Our tech organization is amazing. They're great teachers, and Todd Nathan leads that organization, and he's a big proponent in being good trainers and educators. As a matter of fact, he and several other folks on his team were really a part of the pro certification development program that led to, what was the students were competing on. And again, we had no idea what to expect. So I told the team, bring what you think we need. They brought plenty of rolls and samples and had them in the truck. And if we used them, great. If they didn't, but we were going through them. We had no idea. These guys, I had to force the shutdown so they could go have a lunch break, because there were lines of people coming up wanting to weld. So, and again, it was a way to market to other folks that might be looking at other trades, whether they're electricians or welders. It gave them an opportunity to experience commercial roofing. So we had 2 of our local tech gentlemen there, Mick and Rocky. And like you said, they kept really busy. And they gave feedback. They probed the seams so they could tell them, hey, this is a good weld. This is what you could have done differently, right? So it was very educational and fun.
It was fun. Yeah, it was so great. We had so many different, including all of us. Everybody who was in the booth tried it once.
I think McKay got up there and did it, right?
Yep.
So
it was great. So let's talk a little bit about the sponsors, because this is, I think, really, really important. I want to again give another shout out to Rick D'Amato. Rick and I are both on the CTE committee along with Jennifer, and we were like, oh, we can raise money. So we went out and asked people to get involved so that we could do all these different types of things. In fact, one example, if you see the young man in the picture, he on his badge, on his lanyard, he has all these pins. Well, that's a big deal at SkillsUSA. All the vendors, all the sponsors, all the different states, they all have pins. So of course, NRCA had some pins. So there were, there were just a number of expenses, and sponsors stepped up. And for the, the largest one was John's Manville. And Jen, I've always said thank you, but I'm gonna say thank you again, because wow, it was amazing. And then we had Tamco, who donated all the shingles, and they also helped SRS, who not only donated, but they also did all the deliveries. They helped get all the materials there, plus this huge, amazing mock-up for steep slope. That the advisors were just crazy. I think the advisors came by, and there were many who said, "Can we just have this demo, this little house that was going on?" But you guys are going to have to help me so I don't miss anybody. So SRS, Tamco, IB Roof donate all the materials for the commercial competition. Then we had Roofing Contractor Magazine, Roofers Coffee Shop, National Women in Roofing. And I want to do a shout out to Lisa Pye, who's on this call. Lisa, you worked all 3 days, you and the team from Bone Dry and from Roofing Corp of America. You're amazing. RT3 with all the technology was there. And I hope I'm not missing anybody else.
Okay.
Who?
Garca.
Oh, Garca. Dang. Georgia Roofing Contractor Association. They made it all happen. The hands-on, bringing the demos, putting everything together. And then of course, NRCA, who huge involvement. And so I'm just going down through my mind to make sure we haven't missed a single person.
Well,
So
I think Roofers Coffee Shop also.
Yeah.
I was
Roofers
going to
Coffee
say, did
Shop.
we not mention Roofers Coffee
Yeah.
Shop? And
Yeah.
important Heidi Ellsworth was into this effort.
It was great. And for everyone out there, and Morgan, so good to see you. She wanted to know if this was being recorded because she'd like to share it with her company, because Montana has to have a team next year, Morgan. And Platinum Roofing, along with Roof Connect, was also another sponsor. Thank you, Rick. I had it written down, but we got everyone now. But those kind of sponsorships, all the people who were there really made a difference. We went direct onto YouTube. So if you want to see some of these sponsors, just go to the Roofers Coffee Shop YouTube, look for the playlist from SkillsUSA, and you can hear from a lot of these people and see the excitement and how much they loved it. So, but along with all those great sponsors and all those associations, different groups, we also had GARCA associations and NRCA. John, talk to us a little bit about how important is it that we get associations from across the country, like Montana Roofing Contractors, because I know Morgan's on here. How important is it we get those associations also involved with the contractors?
It's paramount. So the best recipe to bake this cake in order to generate these SkillsUSA students regularly and in perpetuity is to have a handful of industry people in the state who are willing to do this, who understand, and then have that regional association also be very much in tune with them. It's our goal to grow this thing out, where we had maybe, I think our state with the most competitors last year was 4. We assume that within the next 3 years, we're going to be 20. And if we need to have 10 mock-ups in all 50 states, the lift is going to get exponentially larger as we go. So we know we're going to need a few contractors who understand or are willing to roll this out and donate the resources to make it happen, and regional association support in order to fill in where an individual contractor, even that group, can't necessarily make it happen. For the sake of this year, GARCA and Betsy Rom at GARCA arranged for all the mock-ups to be delivered to the SkillsUSA Hall A, where all this stuff was going down. So, you're talking about 5 low slope 8x8 mock-ups and 1 larger steep slope mock-up. It's difficult to overstate how important that regional association, lending the support and lending the resources of their membership, really got us over the finish line.
Yeah, and you can't discount the teardown. I mean, I have to admit, a number of the sponsors, we got everything cleaned up and we were kind of out of there. And I know that Tim and I know Rick was doing a bunch there, and then of course Garca was coming and picking everything up and taking it back along with SRS. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that Friday morning when it was just the people tearing down Conference Hall A, they were on time, which I can tell you as someone who is looking at the clock and really looking forward to catching a flight back home. I was very happy that they were punctual and we were able to tear the thing down right. It went a long way for telling the people who are running that construction cluster that not only is the roofing industry here, but we're here to be good partners. We're here to clean up our mess when we're done and, build relationships. And I think all those things and all that support really was the extra mile.
Yeah, I think so too. And when we talk about associations, I just want to mention too, this is something that other associations, I'm seeing Leanne Slattery on here, and that like Metal Construction Association, I know they're interested. So this is something that all of the associations within our great industry can start getting involved, because I mean, tell you what, I saw a lot of HVAC, saw a lot of metal, that was everywhere, all the welding. So it won't be long till there's sheet metal going up. So, okay.
And I'd just like to add, as far as contractor involvement, that it's grassroots right now, right? And it really took a few contractors to go out into their communities and find candidates and then say, either maybe, in one case, I think, one of the parents worked for I think it was Baker Roofing that was there, took on a kid, mentored them, and really got them up to speed, just because of their passion around that. And, some of this is going to be truly grassroots where, hey, you may not have a CTE school in your location, and it's like, hey, let's find a kid, just try to find a CTE school that we can marry him with. And yeah.
I agree. And we're going to have some examples of that in just a few minutes. But I also want to say, to have Lisa Sprick there, the chair of National Roofing Contractors Association, working, she was there working. We had Sherry Miles, and there were a lot of contractors in the booth talking to students, talking to everyone going by, along with the NRCA, McKay, and everyone else. So you're right, Jen. I mean, it showed every part of the roofing industry in that booth. Oh, I just went the wrong way. Dang. Okay. We're going to go back up. So, we want to talk about how. So we're going to, first of all, and since I missed that slide, so I'm sorry, but we know what it says. So we're just going to start there, John, on, kind of as people, we have contractors who are out there or who are going to be listening to this, who are probably thinking, how do I get involved with SkillsUSA? How do I even start? It seems kind of overwhelming. So what are some of the reasons to get involved? And then also, how do they go about it?
So for reasons to get involved, one of my favorite quotes is, be the change you wish to see. I think it was Gandhi, but I might be paraphrasing. We have an opportunity with the roofing industry right now to build off of the momentum that NRCA and its membership is currently generating with SkillsUSA. So this is a great time to be a part of that pushing momentum and just make some differences in your community. You can start by reaching out, asking what CTE, what career and technical education committees we can sit on, or you can sit on as a representative for the roofing industry. You can contact me for information on, well, what are the things I need to do to get this contest running? You can look at NRCA's resources. You can talk to your regional association and ask how they're currently involved and whether or not you can lend a hand. But fortunately, in the last 18 months or so, we're really starting to get a lot of people in a lot of different places who are willing to lend a hand in one way or another. So whether or not it be a large or a small kind of involvement, there's a level of involvement that we can tailor you for that'll help the effort in your community. And that's the most important thing right now.
Exactly. So how do you connect with a CTE school, John?
So you can reach out via going to the NRCA website and finding a list of career and technical education schools in your area. You reach out to them, you try to contact an advisor who helps oversee the building sciences, the construction programs at that school, and you volunteer to sponsor that school. You say, my name is so-and-so from company X, and I would like to be the voice of the roofing industry for your school and sponsor your school so your students can have access to this training for free. It is the expectation that industry pays for 100% of all things. For details on how that can work, you can contact me directly, but the real rubber meets the road time is when those companies are scheduling for their trainers to go into those classrooms and teach those students hands-on about roofing. What a concept. And then from there, we should be able to build enough momentum. You get a couple of kids that are interested, we can start a competition team. We can make that school a school that's churning out commercial roofing and really good teamwork candidates.
Yeah. And on the teamwork, so when they're talking about that, think about all the vocational schools out there, all the CTE schools that are building whole houses. I talked to a lot of students who came by and like, oh yeah, we built a whole house. They're roofing it. There is steep slope, the shingles. And so there's a lot of opportunity to teach both low slope and steep slope within those schools as you connect with them. And, Jen, you brought this up earlier, like all of the advisors who came by, who wanted information, who were so excited. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, they were coming up, they were welding, they were asking about the industry. I think they were, spending a lot of time with our NRCA team members that were there to get a little bit more information. And like I said, it's a key to get them involved because they're going to be your biggest advocate and champion. And they're as equally excited, I think, to bring in new content into their organization. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And that's who I would, suggest getting involved with, first is finding that advisor there and just getting them the information they need to learn a little bit more about our industry.
Get started. Christy Holbrook with Graham Roofing was at the National Women in Roofing table, and she honed in on this right away. And so she was, every time an advisor would come by, she's like, you need to fill this out and we'll give you a free bag, or we need your name so that we can connect you with a contractor. And it was interesting as a lot of these teachers or advisors would come up, they would say, well, we want to get a contractor on our advisory board at the school to help advise us. And I was like, what a great way to get involved, to really start understanding. So John, maybe talk just a little bit about, the importance of it's getting in the class and teaching, of course, but even getting more involved with helping on those advisory boards.
It really is the first step. For where this whole thing kind of, the journey of 1,000 miles, where it begins, the goal is to start building relationships with local career and technical education schools. And that comes through participation in those advisory boards and letting that community get to know the roofing industry through you specifically. Show up on time, be professional, fulfill promises, and before you know it, they're going to be very eager to say, okay, this is an entirely new pathway. Obviously, the roofing industry is ubiquitous when it comes to building construction. Absolutely, this is something we need to address. And, being that advisor is a very powerful relationship in that process.
And we have a number of contractors, and like I said, we're going to go through a list of some contractors you all can reach out to talk to, but we have a number of contractors who are already on advisory boards. So by getting in touch with you, John, they can kind of talk to some other contractors who have been through this, because unfortunately, it's not always the easiest thing. You have to have a little bit of persistence and tenacity, right?
It's true. I've heard stories of, Nick Sabino in Ohio. He made a call to a CTE school on a Monday. He was in there by a Friday. Yeah. And I have other examples like in Arizona, where right now we haven't had any schools decide to take a nibble on this thing yet. So I think the best thing is to think persistence is charm when it comes to this thing. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take the amount of time it usually takes for someone to grasp an entirely foreign concept, which is what roofing is to the career and technical education school. I certainly hope that the people listening to this get very lucky and have that one call where they're like, all right, come on down. But for those of you who don't, stick with it, because where we started to see the fruit grow off of these efforts is really spectacular and absolutely worth the time and effort it takes.
Yeah, and I think we have to talk a little bit about recruitment, because by being involved, even if you never do get a SkillsUSA team, which I hope you all do, but even if you didn't, by being involved, these are your future workforce. You have a chance to be in front of students every day who are going to be looking for jobs when they graduate. And that's really, you know, we don't want them all going into carpentry and plumbing. We want them to come into roofing. Okay. So as we are looking at that, and I know we had kind of talked about this, so want to kind of go through and talk about some of the contractors. I would like to mention in this picture, this is the crew from IB Roof Systems who did all of the judging and mentoring during the commercial roofing competition. And just like with the Johns Manville techs, these guys, everybody, they're all great. So, and did great work. So let's start with the winner of the commercial roofing competition. John, can you talk about the winner and also the company?
Yeah, absolutely. The first winner was named Kyle, or is named, he's still very much with us, named Kyle Cameron, and he's from Kansas. Ray Roofing and Kurt Steinholder. Well, Kurt took up the mantle as state technical chair in the state after Kevin Gwaltney passed away, which Kevin was our industry representative in the state prior to that. And Kevin was successful in generating a school that had a couple of students. And then we needed Kurt to come in and step in and sort of take it from there in a relatively short amount of time. And him and his team at Ray Roofing did an outstanding job of preparing Kyle to eventually win the national championship. The OG, JD Miles Roofing, under Sherry Miles. Sherry was the person who generated the first school anywhere in the United States to do the commercial roofing contests that we ended up having a national contest with. She made connections with the Virginia Beach technical community prior to even me coming on with NRCA. So my humility is not false. Like, this is actually the result of a lot of people working very hard on this before any effort of mine. And Sherry and JD Miles is very much a part of that. Baker Roofing, they sponsored Brandon Lopez, who was our third place finisher out of South Carolina. An amazing company, hugely passionate about this, and they're determined to generate a national champion, which I appreciate, because those are the standards that we want these contractors to internalize and run with. Bone Dry Roofing sponsored Mia Polito, our female contestant out of Indiana. And all these companies, and Matrix Roofing and McPartland Roofing and Showalter Roofing and dozens of other contractors around the United States are all doing everything that we are asking them to do to kind of build this up from the ground with the intent of doing something hugely significant for the future of the roofing industry.
Yeah. So these are all contractors. The first four were in the competition this year with students coming from their state. The last two, Matrix and McPartland, we kind of threw some names down there because they're really active on that. That's Wendy Marvin and Hillary McPartland. Sorry, Hillary, who are on the CTE committee too. But I mean, when you think about Sherry Miles, there's just so many people that you can talk to who have done this, and to help you maybe, get around some of the pitfalls that they've all had to go through, or not, as they've worked their way through it. So Jen, you work with contractors every single day with Johns Manville. You know all these people and you do all these. What are some of your thoughts on these contractors who have really are pioneers around SkillsUSA?
Yeah, I would just say this can only benefit them and the industry, right? By engaging the youth coming into the industry. And these, like you said, these are contractors listed here on the forefront of it all, right? And the NRCA propped the door open for us to get into something like this. And again, I'll reiterate, there were like 6,000 kids there. So it's not a small little thing. You guys could help these kids out so much by mentoring and coaching them. And And they, the folks that the 4 kids that we had there were so excited to learn. You could just tell the way they were interacting with the people that were assessing their work and asking questions and truly engaged.
And you know who I'm thinking on here, John? I just don't want to leave. I'm thinking Tim, who from Florida, that with has done so much on the CTE committee and is chair, I believe, of the CTE committee. We have like I said before, Graham Roofing with Christy Holbrook. So if we missed anybody on this list, please do not take it personally, because we're calling you all out, and everyone is doing so much to try to make this initiative happen. I mean, we won't be able to even have a page next year because it's going to be so full of all the contractors.
If Heidi, if you come back to me in a second, I can at least shout out names of everyone who is doing it, but we've got around 50 names.
Oh my gosh.
So maybe this will go in the tail end of this, or I can try to say them all in 60 seconds, but that's tight.
Or people can call you and connect.
Or
there
they,
you go.
or they
there
can
we
call
go.
me and connect.
Or email. We'll have that too. So let's talk about that again. Let's talk about kind of the next steps, and we're just going to repeat a little bit because there's just a lot here that needs to happen. So Jen, I'd like to start with you. Just kind of, we've already talked about reaching out to your local CTE school. That's the number one step, but they can also reach out to you and to other manufacturers to get involvement. So talk about that.
Yeah, most manufacturers have some kind of training program, right? And so, I think expanding that to maybe some of these CTE schools, or at least doing, inviting some of these kids into some of your hands-on training, getting exposure to your tech reps locally, I think can only benefit the industry, number one. The other way you can get involved in the NRCA, I just sat in the committee meetings a couple weeks ago. They're looking at how we can expand this. This was our first year. These kids have to get themselves there. So it costs money to get a flight and, a flight hotel, and NRCA is definitely trying to find ways to make this an all paid thing. But some of the more ancillary things that we are expanding our thoughts to are things like safety equipment. We had one of our attendees was totally decked out, and it was great to see how he put safety forward first, one of the competitors. But the other thing that I don't know if we talked about yet is the red jackets. So we all know the Masters program, Masters golf, and the green jacket is so coveted. These kids covet this red jacket, and they have to pay for it. And when I first got there, there was this whole area of a bunch of kids, and I thought it was a registration, and I was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to wait in line forever. No, it's the apparel place. And if you win your competition, you are required to have a certain dress code, and one of the things you need to have is a red jacket. And so these are kids that are all coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Some may be able to afford it, some may not be able to afford it. So even little things like helping a kid buy a jacket if they go to this, right? Or hats or whatever. They have to wear a uniform when they're on their floor. There's so many different ways you can get involved. And if you don't have time to get involved at the CTE school level, roofing day is one day a year, maybe 2 days out of your year that you can go, because the number one issue we talk about are workforce issues. And the biggest challenge we see specific to CTE is that career technical education is funded less than 1% of what colleges are being funded at the federal level. I mean, it's a huge discrepancy between how we fund education, and the need is here. It's for career to technical development, and we need more funding to support these schools. So go to roofing day. If you can't go to roofing day, go to your local Congress people and have a conversation about the importance of educating, because they're the ones that are going to suffer when their home is leaking because they don't have a roof, or their school systems have issues and they have no funding, or they may have funding, but there's no labor to put on a new roof in one of their schools, or, so anyway, that's my plea for getting involved.
Yeah, if I may kind of co-sign that, Jennifer, NRCA's political advocacy team, Dwayne Musser, Deb Mazel, and Terry Dorn, they're the ones who put on Roofing Day, which I was fortunate enough to go to a couple years ago. And it really is an incredible thing to, be in the halls of power and having conversations about the future of this industry. It's incredibly important. Do some homework on it, and then feel free to reach out to Terry, Dwayne, or Deb. Deb, who is the commissioner of our in-office fantasy football league, and just get involved in whatever way you can.
Yeah. And you know what? It's really easy. If you want to get in touch with John, www.nrca.net/CTE schools. And you will find John. If you can't find him there, you can always get a hold of us at Roofers Coffee Shop, Heidi at Roofers Coffee Shop, and we will connect you. Same thing, if you want to get connected with Jennifer and John's Manville, we can do that to hear, their involvement, or how you can get more involved that way. And I will say too, www.nrca.net/roofing day will get you to the roofing day information for 2024 too, which is in April. So, and we want to hear from you, right? So whether you're watching this live today or whether you're watching this on demand, as you take your journey through the CTE schools to SkillsUSA, we are going to be showing those stories. We're going to be celebrating these young people, celebrating these roofing companies that really, I'm going to just be honest here, that really get it and are talking to that next generation and being involved in their community. So share your stories with us so that we can help to shine a light, even a bigger light, on this amazing initiative that's going on. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but I would love.
Heidi, we have one person, Jeff Johnson, that has his hand up.
Oh, great. Yes, Jeff.
He's one of the people we would have thanked.
Yeah. Jeff, can you chat? Or here, I'll allow you to talk. Let's try it. Let's see if we can do this. Okay, Jeff, are you there?
Hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Jeff.
Can you still hear me?
Still hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I hit it by accident. I was trying to find the, you had a chat, there's a chat button down there, and I was hitting the red to see what it said. And I hit the raise hand by accident. I apologize.
Well, Jeff, I love it. I've never done that before. Now I know how to do that. So we'll be doing it more in the future. So that's great.
Jeff helped us out with Indiana. He was with Bone Dry Roofing.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
You're
Jeff.
welcome. And
Congratulations.
hey, John, you tell that fella in Kansas or wherever he's from, the one that's going to have a champion, we'll have one before he will.
There we go. In the podcast that I recorded earlier this week with Mia.
Hey, edit that out. Edit that out.
That's up to Heidi. But we had I hosted a podcast, Growing America's Roofing Workforce, which is available on NRCA's platforms. And we had Mia Polito, our champion from Indiana, that Jeff helped coach up, and Kyle Cameron, our first place champion. And the one thing that I think we'll take away is that Kyle's okay if we have a championship belt next year instead of just a trophy. So pending the success of Heidi and Rick and the fundraising subcommittee, I look forward to shopping for giant championship belts to award the winner next year. So anyone's game.
We're on. Rick and I like the competition of how much money we can bring in. So we're ready. We'll get those belt buckles going for sure. Well, great. I just want to say so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, John, for being on today. What a great RLW and such excellent information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Heidi. Have a nice one.
Love it. And I want to say thank you very much to John's Manville again for sponsoring this and for being a leader as they are with the SkillsUSA and everything throughout the roofing industry. We appreciate them so much. If you please share this will be on demand. Since this is a special time today on a Friday, it will be on demand towards the end of Monday. Feel free to share it, get it out there, talk about it. This is the kind of stuff that really needs to go viral, and that's all of you helping us share the message and get the word out. So thank you so much. The end of July, we are going to have another very special RLW, and it will be with Java and Trent Cotney and other guests, just talking about kind of what's happening coaching out there and hot tips for really your business overall. So watch for that. Coffee Conversations will also be starting again at the end of August. So here we go. I hope you're all having a wonderful summer, and we will be seeing you on the next RLW and Coffee Conversations at the end of August. Have a great day.